читанием дальше станем. Я прочитаю от второе послание от Коринфянам, 9 глава, 6-15 стих. Before my prayer, we'll be reading from 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 6 through 15. That says, But this I say, he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and he who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. So let each one, as he proposes in his heart, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abundant towards you, that you always have a sufficiency in all things. May he have abundance for every good work. As it is written, He has dispersed abroad, he has given to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. Now may he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food, supply and multiply the seed you have sown and increase the fruits of your righteousness. While you are enriched in everything for all liberality, which causes thanksgiving throughout to us from God, from the administration of this service not only supplies the needs of the saints, but also is abundant through God, through many thanksgivings to God. While throughout the proof of this ministry they glorify God for the obedience of your confessions to the gospel of Christ, and for your liberal sharing with them and them of all men. And by their prayer for you, who long for you because of the exceeding grace of God in you. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you that we could all come to this youth service. Lord, thank you that you sent your Son to come on the cross and die for our sins, Lord. I ask for a good service, Lord, and let us all drive home safely afterwards. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Оставаясь стоя, мы откроем номер 124 в синих сборниках. We'll open up number 124 in the blue hymnals. If you're not of the kind of person that likes to look at the screen, the song will be Holy, Holy, Holy in English.
Holy, 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 Lord
wood whistle. I'd like to ask our youth choir to come up, and after that, Ivan will sing a solo.
elect from every nation, yet one o'er all the earth, a charter of salvation, one Lord, one faith, one birth, one holy name she blesses, partakes one holy food, and to one hope she presses with every grace and good. Mid toil and tribulation and tumult of her war, she waits the consummation of peace forevermore, till with the vision glorious, alone in night the heart blessed, and the great church victorious shall be the church at rest. The church is one foundation, is Jesus Christ our Lord. She is His new creation, by water and the word. From heaven He came and saw her to be His holy bride. With His own blood He bought her, and for her life He died. Amen.
Amen.
Теперь мы опять встанем и споем номер 12 в синих сборниках. В это время мы также соберем пожертвования. Я попрошу, чтобы Вова и Саша вышли сюда вперед, пожалуйста. Мы помолимся. Dear God, I thank you that we have this opportunity to give to your glory, to your service, as we are able, Father. I pray that you would bless this offering, that you would put it towards the work of the church, and that you would bless each and every one of us listening today with generous hearts. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We will be singing Blessed Assurance, number 12 in the...
Washed in His
Садитесь, пожалуйста, братья и сестры. Если вы не будете понимать то, что я говорю по-английски, пожалуйста, поднимите руку. Вам принесут наушники. Сегодня у меня проповедь будет одна, будет по-английски и будет длинная. Поэтому, пожалуйста, возьмите наушники, чтобы не сидели, не понятие, в чем случается. Всех есть, которым надо? Хорошо. Before I start, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. This is for the youth. That will be repeated in about an hour or so after choir practice. Those of you that are above 18 are interested in being camp counselors this year. We have forms for you. Please come and fill them out. And secondly, on this Saturday, April 7th, so that's next Saturday. Next Saturday, April 7th, we'll be having Bible study at David Badisevich's house, according to the schedule. That is all my announcements. Okay, today I want to talk to you guys about your attitude when giving. Your attitude when giving. It's something that God has been showing to me lately. Like, here, there, everywhere, no matter where I look, I feel like I keep getting the same message. And so I think that it's probably right that I share it with you. It's about attitude, specifically the attitude we have when giving to the Lord's work. Now, this could be time, it could be energy, it could simply be money, but when we give, whether to other people or directly for the mission of saving people's souls, our attitude is a very, very important thing. So today, we're going to explore a passage in 2 Corinthians 9, which Roman was kind enough to read for us earlier. And as we explore this, I want you all to examine your own attitude about giving. And maybe even your own attitude about having possessions. Now, many of you have heard the phrase, you get out of it what you put into it, right? In general, that's how the way life works. If someone never puts time and effort into practicing, then Vlad, will that person become a musician? No, they won't. It just won't happen. If someone never spends time reading their Bible, then it's really no surprise that they don't understand what God wants or what He's like. It's simple math. If you don't plant potatoes in your backyard, then potatoes won't appear in your backyard, right? You get out of it what you put into it. By that logic, though, if you give something away, then it's gone. You can't get anything out of that because you never put it into anything. And that makes perfect sense, right? That's how our minds work. That's how the world works. You get out of it what you put into it. But today we're also going to explore something called kingdom math. This is different from what they teach you in school. Kingdom math. And it's going to help shape your attitude about giving. So if you please open your Bibles or follow on the screen with me here, we're going to be reading 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 15. And before we start reading, I want to give you all a little bit of background about what's happening. The church at Corinth, at some point in the past, had promised to give some money to the people in Jerusalem in order to help the spread of the ministry. We're not sure, exactly what the plan for the money was, exactly where it was going to be used, but that's the basic idea. So the time has come that Paul is coming to collect that money and to take it where it needs to go. Since in those days they didn't have Western Union or PayPal or Bitcoin or anything else like that, he couldn't just text them the right hash and they could get the money however they wanted. Paul's letting the Corinthians know that he's coming, and he's sending some friends ahead of him in order to make sure two things. First, that the money is ready, which makes sense, and secondly, that it's being collected in the right way, from people that are giving it with the right attitude. And in our passage, Paul is telling the people of Corinth what that attitude is supposed to be. So verse 6, the point is this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. See, here in verse 6, we see Paul repeating the rule of you only get out of it what you put into it. Little seed, little harvest. Much seed, much harvest. Apparently this was a popular proverb in Asia Minor at the time. People would always go, oh, you didn't put much into it. Well, little seed, little harvest, big seed, big harvest. Sorry, man. But we know that that's how planting and harvesting works, right? Put in a lot of seed, get a lot of potatoes. And as a church, this rule applies too. If as a church we don't spread the word, we won't reap people's souls. So Paul is letting them know that in order to accomplish much, they need to put much into the work. If they want to spread the gospel, it takes time, it takes money, it takes effort to accomplish things. But that being said, it's not just the resources that matter. There's something else that comes into play here. It's also the way that they're given. Let's read verse 7. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. A cheerful giver. Now, it doesn't mean someone who's accepted the financial loss and decided, you know what, I'm okay with it. It'll do. It's okay. It's worth it, I guess. A cheerful giver is someone who's driven to give and finds benefit, pleasure, joy in the giving itself. Many of you might be aware, hopefully are aware by this point. If you are not, I would highly recommend coming to church more often, like, at least once a month. We're currently raising money to build a new church building. Now, thanks to God, our church has been blessed, rather out of the blue, with land on which to build the building, assuming it passes all the necessary inspections. And many of our church members have been blessed with the ability to contribute to this new building as they have decided in their heart. What you hopefully noticed, as we've been in this process for the past 3 years, is that we don't institute mandatory fees. We're not here collecting a pew tax or anything ridiculous like that. Instead, as a church, we're giving cheerfully to the Lord's work out of whatever our hearts have decided is right. Now, today I'm not focused on our new building or on raising money, but I figured if I'm talking about raising money, I should mention that. Instead, what I want to talk about is that decision that people make in their hearts, that specifically you make in your heart. About the attitude behind that decision. Do I give? How much do I give? Why am I giving? One of the greatest difficulties, in my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that people experience in having a cheerful attitude about giving is that they feel that if they give away their money or energy, then they won't have enough for themselves. If they give to the work of the church, what's going to be left for their own life and comfort? I mean, like, I want my Five Guys burger. Just saying, I like Five Guys. If I give money to the church, I'm going to have one less Five Guys burger for the week. Or more than one, depending on how much I give. Well, Paul recognizes this difficulty. He knows that people have this problem. That they want comfort, and so they don't want to give their money away. I mean, who wants to give their money away, right? It doesn't even make sense. And he addresses that problem in the next verse. This is really cool about the Bible. If you sit on one verse and you think about it for a few minutes, then like 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a question. And that question is going to get answered in the next verse. I don't know, I think it's true. Alright, so next verse, verse 8. And God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having still all sufficiency in all things, at all times, you may abound in every good work. As it is written, He has distributed freely, He has given to the poor, His righteousness endures forever. Now, this is not a capital H He. I'm assuming that it's correctly written up there. It's not a capital H He, because it's talking about a person, not about God. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read the entire psalm where this is quoted from. And in English it's Psalm 112, in Russian it's 111. So Psalm 112. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who greatly delights in His commandments. His offspring will be mighty in the land, the generation of the upright will be blessed. Wealth and riches are in his house, and his righteousness endures forever. Light dawns in the darkness for the upright. He is gracious, merciful, and righteous. It is well with the man who deals generously and lends, who conducts his affairs with justice. For the righteous will never be moved. He will be remembered forever. He's not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting the Lord. His heart is steady. He will not be afraid until he looks in triumph on his adversaries. He has distributed freely. He has given to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. His horn is exalted in honor. The wicked man sees it and is angry. He gnashes his teeth and melts away. The desire of the wicked will perish. So the psalm talks about a man who has distributed freely. He has given to the poor. He's followed God's commands. And because of those actions, and because of the attitude behind them, he can be confident that he has acted righteously. And a man who has acted righteously, it says here, will never be moved. He's not afraid of bad news. He trusts in the Lord. His heart is steady. He will not be afraid. Wealth and riches are in his house. Wait a second. Hold on. Let's check that again. Can we bring verse 3 back up there? The man who has given away things freely has wealth and riches. Verse 3. Wealth and riches are in his house. And then verse 9. He has distributed freely. He has given to the poor. Feels like it should be one or the other, right? Well, you know what? Maybe he was already rich. And it's not hard to distribute when you're already rich. Like, let me tell you, I'm waiting for the moment when I get rich, and I'm going to distribute all the things I have. Not a problem. You know, when I won't notice how much is gone, it's not a problem. I'm going to give out all the money I have. You want a Five Guys burger when I'm rich? You come talk to me. Not now. And the verse in 2 Corinthians, if we read that one again, it says, having sufficiency in all things at all times, you may abound in every good work. So maybe it's after you've been blessed, right? With lots and lots of time or lots and lots of money. You know, I'll have time to work for the church when I'm retired, right? Maybe that's when we should start giving things away. Because, you know, you won't notice that it's gone. I mean, so far, maybe. Let's keep reading and see what happens. Next verse. He who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the harvest of your righteousness. All right, ready for this? This is the cool verse. Like, this is like we had the setup verses, and then we're going to have the follow-up verses, and this is the cool verse. In this verse, it says that God is going to first supply, and then multiply your seed, and then multiply your harvest. So, you're not doing anything. God is providing you with what you're going to use. He's then multiplying it for funsies. And then He's multiplying your harvest. It says it right there, right? He was going to supply the seed, and then multiply it, and then multiply the harvest. So it doesn't matter at what stage of life or your current wealth you're sowing, God is going to supply the seed. And then He's going to do two more things. First, He's going to increase the harvest. Now, this is something we talk about a lot, you know. If you give a little, God is going to multiply it and help you accomplish a lot. But the second thing that we often gloss over is that God is multiplying the seed and supplying the seed that you need for sowing. So God is going to both multiply what you have and give it to you in the first place, and then multiply what it can do. It gets multiplied from both ends. Now, this breaks our rule of what you put in is what you get out. Because you're not putting in anything that hasn't been supplied, and then it's getting multiplied, not by you. You put in something, right? So let's say, you know, you do put in something, because whether or not God has supplied it, we still have it and we feel the loss of it. So you put in something, and then what you put in gets multiplied, and then what comes out of that is multiplied again. Now, those of you who aren't great math whizzes here, that's like exponential stuff. So exponential growth is what you want as a company, because it's just going like multiply by multiply by multiply by multiply. So instead of 2 and plus 2 or times 2, you get like 2 to the second power. So God's multiplying and then multiplying. And it's something that's really hard for us to understand. You know, we're dealing with the God who created seeds. We're dealing with the God who created harvests. And it's really hard for us to understand this weird kingdom math. Like, no, what I put in is what I get out. There can't be any multiplication because that's not how my world works. What I put in is what I get out. But it's not just us that has that problem. We can look back at the Old Testament and we can see that God has been providing. and that his provision has not been understood for thousands and thousands of years. So, we're going to open up, because we have lots of time. I'm very excited about this. I hope you all know. Exodus chapter 16, verse 13. Exodus chapter 16, verse 13. And we're going to look at another group of people that really, really did not understand how God provides. Chapter 16, verse 13. In the evening, quail came down and covered the camp. And in the morning, dew lay around the camp. And when the dew had gone up, there was on the face of the wilderness a fine flake-like thing, fine as frost on the ground. And the people of Israel saw it, they said to one another, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "It is the bread." Now, if someone had, looked at me in the morning and said, "Dude, that stuff on the ground, the shiny stuff, it's bread. I promise you it's bread." Would not have believed me. Like, they would have had to eat it 3 or 4 times before I bought that. I don't know. Stuff that's on the ground in the morning doesn't seem like bread to me. But Moses said to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. And this is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it, each of you, as much as he can eat." Now, I like that commandment, like as much as he can eat. "You shall each take an omer, according to the number of persons that each of you has in his tent." And the people of Israel did so. They gathered, some more, some less. And when they measured it with an omer, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. Each of them gathered as much as he could eat. And Moses said to them, "Let no one leave any of it over till the morning." And the next verse, "But they did not listen to Moses. Some left part of it till the morning. And what happened? It bred worms, and it stank. And Moses was angry with them. Morning by morning they gathered it, each as much as he could eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the 6th day," and this is the cool part, "they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers each. And when all the leaders of the congregation came in and told Moses, he said to them, 'This is what the Lord has commanded. Tomorrow is a day of solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake, and boil what you will boil, and all that is over lay aside to be kept till the morning.' So they laid it aside till the morning as Moses commanded them, and it did not stink, and there were no worms in it. Moses said, 'Eat it today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it. But on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, there will be none.' Now, of course, the people of Israel never listened. Like, you'd think they'd figure this out. But on the 7th day, some of the people went out together, and they found none. Surprise, surprise. And the Lord said to Moses, 'How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and laws? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he gives you bread for 2 days. Remain each of you in their place. Let no one go out of his place on the 7th day.' So the people rested on the 7th day. So God provides bread from heaven. And not just any bread, but apparently bread that tastes like wafers with honey. Now, 95% of the American population will never, ever understand what wafers with honey taste like. But all of us had waffle with condensed milk, so I think we can all get that this was really yummy bread. And what happened? Right? The people complained. They gathered on the 7th day, and probably not just once, but time and again they would come out on the 7th day. Like, why? And despite, so for 2 years, every morning these people wake up and pick up bread from the ground. They wake up every single morning and pick up bread from the ground. And every single 7th day, their bread lasts twice as long as it does every other day. That's not normal. If I buy a loaf of bread from Giant on Monday, it should make it till Wednesday. And if it doesn't, then I'm not going to expect that if I buy it on Friday, all of a sudden it's going to last 2 days for me. It's not how it works. And so every morning, these people go out and from the desert floor get bread. And every evening, a big old flock of birds comes down and lands in the middle of their camp. And they literally walk out and go, "Oh, hunting. Got one. Another one. Look at me. I'm a strong hunter. I have meat every single day." Every morning, every evening. Every morning, every evening. Every morning, every evening. And then it does the cool thing where it lasts for 2 days sometimes. You'd think they'd understand, right? God is able to provide. Doesn't matter what you have or what you don't have. Y'all have been gathering bread in the desert these 2 years. God is able to provide. Well, let's see what happens. So, every morning they get bread. Every evening a flock of birds falls out of the sky. And so the people of Israel finally, after 2 years of making a 2-week trip, so they learn this lesson. This is why God takes them so long. So they would learn the lesson. Every morning, every evening, God is providing. So they finally get to the destination in Numbers chapter 13, verse 27. Numbers 13, verse 27. We're going to read that. And so they send out some spies and they check out the land where they finally got it. And everyone's excited, like, oh, here we go, we're finally at our destination. Finally made it. Been on a 12-hour drive to Florida before. You're really excited when you finally make it. I don't know how these people felt after 2 years of traveling. I can't even imagine. So the spies come back and they told him, so we came to the land which he sent us. And it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. I have no idea what they could have possibly given them to show that this is the fruit. But it must have been some really cool fruit, like a watermelon or something. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides that, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites are dwelling in the land of the Negev, the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites are in the hill country, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. But Caleb, one of the 12 spies that went out, he quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. And then the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought to the people of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people we saw in it are of a great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. Then all the congregation raised a loud cry, and the people wept that night. And all the people of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become a prey. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to one another, let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the people of Israel. They didn't get it. 2 years, bread in the morning, meat at night, and they get there and they go, oh, no, those people too big. We can't do that. They didn't get it. It's not coming from them. It's not coming from you. God is providing. Now, I want to take an aside here and talk about the people in the Bible had the absolute best ways of showing how upset they were. Like, this verse 5, Moses and Aaron fell on their faces. So, nowadays you're like, oh yeah, your face gets like, a little twisted, you might like turn your face aside. In those days, when they were upset, you fall on the ground the fastest way you can get there, basically, on your face or whatever happens. You rip your clothes apart and you put dust on your head. Like, if you ever are wondering if your friend is upset, you can find out really, really quick. Anyway, I don't recommend that nowadays. People will look at you funny, but it's something I find cool. So the people of Israel, they didn't understand that God could provide for them. They didn't have this attitude where they were able to give because they didn't understand that they were going to keep getting. And that's the problem we have, right? One of the main reasons we don't give cheerfully is because we feel like we're taking something away from ourselves. And we don't want to. We don't understand that God can provide if we give away. It's not an easy concept to grasp. Now, you guys heard me talking about how the Israelites got bread every morning and meat every evening. That's not even the most extreme example. I want to take you to Leviticus chapter 25, verses 1 through 5. My Bible study lately, I do a Bible in 1 year kind of thing. It has commentaries. It's been taking me through these books, so that's why all these verses are from there. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow your fields, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap what grows of itself in your harvest, or gather the grapes of your undressed vine. It shall be a year of solemn rest for the land." And we're going to go to Leviticus, same chapter, verse 20. "And if you say, what shall we eat in the 7th year, if we may not sow or gather in our crop? Well, I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, so that I will produce a crop sufficient for 3 years. When you sow in the 8th year, you will be eating some of the old crop. You shall eat the old crop until the 9th year, when the 8th year's crop arrives." Now, I'm glad God is not calling us to do this nowadays. I don't think I'm going to be able to quit my job once every 7 years and be like, "Sorry, Sabbath year. Can't work. But I hope you'll still pay me." I'm really sure what to do there. So every 7 years, God provides these people with enough food for 2 years. Now, I'm not a businessman, I'm not an economist, I'm not a math expert. But if I have a farm, and that farm produces 100 pounds of food every single year for 5 straight years. Now, how much food do you think that farm is going to produce on year number 6? 100 pounds of food, right? Well, guess what? Welcome to Kingdom Math Part 2. That farm is going to produce enough to last me 2 years when I'm living in the town of Israel. And what boggles my mind is how the people of Israel could ever stop following a God that does this kind of absolute ridiculously awesome stuff. And they keep doing it every single time. Like, you read the story of the book of Joshua, the book of Judges, and they go, no thanks, God. Oh, yeah, never mind. Bad idea. We're back. No thanks, God. Over and over and over and over and over. And they're getting this stuff where their farm's doubling their produce every 7 years. Like, how? How do they not get it? How do they not get that God provides? And then I look at myself and I go, okay, actually that kind of makes sense. I don't think I would get it either. God provides. We can confidently give cheerfully because we serve a God who provides. Now that might not make sense for us, because why would God do that? Why would God provide for us to be able to give to others? That doesn't even make sense. Well, let's look at verse 11 in our original passage. Because, when you have a question, it's time to go to the next verse. "You will be enriched in every way, to be generous in every way, which through us will produce thanksgiving to God." So God gives to us so that we can be generous. God gives so that we can give. And we give so that others will give thanks to God. So God gives so that we give. God gives in every way so that we give in every way. God gives, we give. If you don't remember anything else, God gives, we give. I like to think about it this way. Everything we have is on loan, right? We don't take it with us when we go, and we might get to pass it to our children or grandchildren, but honestly, my kids won't want half the stuff that I have. My smartphone is going to be outdated. My computer will be about the same as a brick. My future house will have problems that a new house won't have. And honestly, does anybody want paper books anymore? I'm not even talking about the piles of textbooks I have. They definitely don't want those. But see, that loan that God gives us, of all the stuff that we have, is designed to be used in a way that will let other people know about God. So when you die, I want you to hypothetically imagine here. When people fill out a will, they have like a little asset list. They say like, I own this, it's worth this much, and I own this, it's worth this much, and I own this, it's worth this much. Well, when you die, if you bring that sheet with you to heaven, they're going to be like, doesn't matter. There's going to be one checkbox on the form that's going to matter. Check yes if Jesus is your Lord and Master. And that's the only part of the form anybody's going to care about. And if that's the only eternally valid thing, then the only possible purpose we can have is to have as many people check that box as possible. Yes, we want a comfortable life. Like, yes, we want nice things. Yes, we want to be able to pull up to the gas station in our own car and not have to check if we have money in our account and maybe even buy a snack. And God isn't saying you can't have it. He's saying that your attitude, your focus, your perspective, your purpose, your drive needs to come from spreading the gospel. And that doesn't mean that everybody should go sell off their possessions and go be a missionary in some faraway country. Look, let's be honest. For some of us, the people in those missions, they don't want you there. They would rather you stay here. But we can all play a role in spreading the word. Whether it's far away in Eastern Europe, our church has plenty of missionaries that we help support, or right here at home. It can be active service of some sort. You know, you can sing, you can preach, or it can be a prayer and a check that you put into a plate. None of those is more valid than the other. But we've all been enriched so that we can be generous. And here's the cool part, ready? If you empty out the giveaway section of your bank account, God's going to fill it back up. It says it right here. He will enrich in every way so that we can be generous in every way. And I'm not saying that means you should go off and sell everything you have. Okay? I don't have faith like that. I pray that one day I will. But we know that God has this system. He's going to give so you can give away so He can refill. Give, give away. Give, give away. Give, give away. Refill. Money, energy, it doesn't matter. Give away, refill. Now let's look at verse 12. Paul's going to summarize his little lesson. For the ministry of this service, you know, the stuff that the church of Corinth is given to, is not only supplying the needs of the saints, but is also overflowing in many thanksgivings to God. By their approval of this service, they will glorify God because of your submission that comes from your confession of the gospel of Christ and the generosity of your contribution for them and for all others, while they long for you and pray for you because of the surpassing grace of God upon you. Thanks be to God for His inexpressible gift. Paul summarizes his letter here with a reminder of how this money is going to be used. It's going to be used for supplying the needs of the saints and the ministers in Jerusalem. So they will glorify God because of the gift itself. They will glorify God because of the generosity of givers. And God will be even more glorified because of their gift through the service of those ministers. Indeed, thanks be to God for that amazing gift. Not just the gifts that we may receive from Him, but because we are able to participate in God giving to others. We are given this amazing privilege of being a part of reaching other people. Now, I've said that before, and I didn't really believe it the way I thought I believed it, because I was thinking about it and I realized something. Here's something interesting. We often view it as an obligation. We say, I need to reach people. I need to tell people about Christ, or else something. Here's my question to you. If God wants someone to be saved, is He going to rely on you, a fallen human being, to do it? Are you going to get to heaven and realize there's a few thousand people who aren't in heaven because of you? Someone isn't going to get to the judgment seat in front of the gates and be told, oh, this is awkward. See, we were telling Oleg to go witness to you, and he never did, so you can't come in. Sorry. You can blame him over in hell if you want. It doesn't make sense. It's not an obligation. We're given the privilege of being a part of God's work to get people to heaven. Now, maybe something you say, maybe something you do can tip the other person's decision in one way or another. Praise God for that. It's an awesome, amazing thing. Maybe the money you put in the offering plate can help support someone who will one day say a word, who will one day lead someone else to Christ. I don't know if any, recently Billy Graham died. Some of you may be aware. Or he changed his addresses, I think he said. And if you follow back the track of who led who to Christ, right? Everybody knows the name Billy Graham. Everybody knows the name of the guy who led him to Christ. Everybody knows the name of the guy who led that guy to Christ. And so on and so forth until you get to some random guy that nobody's ever heard of. He wasn't a big preacher. He didn't go around and evangelize the world. He was just some guy who had some church. But he set off this chain of events that led to lots of other people coming to Christ. It's one little thing that can change people's lives. And that's an awesome, awesome thing. So I want you to be incredibly cheerful about this. Cheerful about the opportunity of spreading the gospel. And the opportunity of being able to give in whatever way it is. Maybe provide funds for other people to share the gospel. Providing funds, in this case, for our church to be able to share the gospel as a whole. That's the attitude we should have, the idea that we're supporting the things that matter eternally. And it shouldn't be an attitude of obligation. It shouldn't be this sadness that we're losing money in some way, even though we are. And let me tell you, it makes me sad. We should be thrilled to give for God's kingdom. And even if we feel like we're losing something, we should realize that God is able to provide. No matter how much we give away of what God has given us, He will provide more in every way. And I'm not just saying that because, I believe in some kind of prosperity gospel. I'm saying it because it says it right here. You will be enriched in every way, to be generous in every way, which through us will provide thanksgiving to God. So I pray that we would all become more generous in every way. And I hope that we will all be cheerful givers. That we would examine our attitude, see how we feel about giving. See if it matches up with what Paul has said here in 2 Corinthians. Giving of our time, giving of our money, knowing that when we give for God's kingdom, it's fulfilling the best possible purpose. And knowing that God will always provide for us to give to others. Amen.
Amen.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you that you've given us this chance to come to church and to talk about giving cheerfully, Lord. You see all of our hearts. You know that some of us are bad at this. Some of us are better at it than others. Lord, I pray that we would all examine ourselves, that we would recognize what our attitude is when it comes to giving. God, that we would recognize if we truly trust you to provide what we give away. Father, if we believe, Lord, that when we take time to come to church and sing in youth choir instead of studying, that you will make up for that, God, in some way, that you will be generous. God, I pray that you would help us to have an attitude of faith about that, an attitude of trust, an attitude of cheerfulness. And Lord, help us to grow closer and closer to you and more like you every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Отец наш Небесный, мы сердечно благодарим Тебя за слова, которые мы слышали о Твоей щедрости, что Ты послал Своего единородного Сына в этот мир для того, чтобы мы могли иметь спасение. Помоги нам также проявлять и щедрость и в нашей духовной жизни, не только с нашими деньгами, но с нашим временем, нашими талантами, способностями, чтобы действительно мы продвигали Царствие Твое, для того, чтобы многие, которые еще не знают Тебя, могли познать Тебя как личного Спасителя. Благодарим Тебя за нашу молодежь, за служение, которое они совершают. И благослови эту рабочую неделю, эту святую неделю, когда мы будем вспоминать все эти события перед Страстной Пятницей и победоносным воскресеньем, чтобы мы поднялись выше, и также ближе к Тебе. И благодать Господа нашего Иисуса Христа, и любовь Бога Отца, и общение Святого Духа, да пробудет со всеми нами. Аминь.
Собрание наше закончено.